Welcome to another video presented by Raven Expeditions. Please subscribe to my channel and share this video to support my work. Over 1,100 kilometers south of Cairo and 500 kilometers south of Luxor is magnificent Abu Simbel, Egypt's southernmost site, situated near the border of modern-day Sudan, ancient Nubia. The excessively long drive to reach this place is, however, worth the while, since once here, visitors are treated to not one but two rock-hewn temples, one for Ramses the Great and the other for his beloved great royal wife Nefertari. This impressive site has been in UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites since 1970. Typical of the grandeur exhibited by Ramses II in his monuments, the main temple of Abu Simbel is famous for its four imposing, colossal, 20-meter seated statues of the pharaoh himself, dominating the facade, flanking the main entrance. One of them has since collapsed, possibly following an earthquake in ancient times. Its fragments can still be seen on the ground today. Inside, the temple consists of three consecutive halls, extending 56 meters or 185 feet into the cliff. Colossal Osirian statues of the pharaoh adorn the main hall, with battle scenes depicting his military triumphs, mainly the famous Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites that gave rise to the first recorded peace treaty in history. This battle is recorded in great detail here. In fact, the battle is found in every temple constructed by Ramses II, even inspiring future pharaohs to follow suit, portraying themselves in the same pose as they smite their enemies. These two temples were originally carved out of a sandstone cliff in the 13th century BC, during the reign of Ramses II. It's pretty awe-inspiring to imagine them being hewn out of the rock over 3,300 years ago. Quite an impressive feat, in fact. Abu Simbel is considered Ramses the Great's masterpiece, an immortal legacy that almost disappeared in the waters of the River Nile. The construction of the Aswan High Dam in the 1960s threatened many monuments in southern Egypt by the rising waters of the Nile that formed the artificial lake called Lake Nasser. These monuments would have been submerged under over 50 meters of water, so there was an urgent need to salvage them, despite being a technical and engineering nightmare. Several monuments were salvaged, including these two temples here. Others weren't so lucky and are now submerged, lost forever to history. Thanks to an international effort led by UNESCO, the Abu Simbel temples were saved from this sad fate. Had they not been relocated, they would have been flooded completely, ending up submerged under the waters of the Nile and lost forever. The relocation of the two temples in the 1960s was a colossal 4-year undertaking that required thousands of hours of hard manual labor to preserve this great monument and the neighboring temple of Queen Nefertari. The dismantling and reassembly process required huge collaboration and great precision. Both temples were manually sawn into over 16,000 blocks and were reassembled 200 meters further inland and 65 meters higher up. The relocation project cost around $40 million at the time, and the entire process was undertaken in 12 consecutive stages. What astonishes me about this project is that almost 60 years later, unless you know exactly where the cut marks are located, they are hardly visible to the naked eye. It's really mind-blowing. We are now approaching the inner sanctum in the temple, also known as the Holy of Holies. It houses 4 deities, Ra-Haraxi, the deified Ramses II, Amun-Ra, and Ptah. An interesting phenomenon that takes place in this temple twice a year, on 22nd February and 22nd October, is that the sun's rays penetrate the entire length of the temple and illuminate the statues of the deities in the Holy of Holies, with the exception of Ptah, who is associated with the underworld, hence perpetual darkness. It's believed that these 2 days represent the pharaoh's birth and coronation. Meanwhile, the second rock-cut temple to the north is smaller in size, dedicated to Ramses II's great royal wife, Queen Nefertari, for the worship of goddess Hathor. On its facade are colossal statues of Nefertari and Ramses II, standing at 10.5 meters or 35 feet. Nefertari's statues are the same height as those of her husband, a very rare display. The prestige held by Nefertari is very obvious, since a female was traditionally represented on a much smaller scale than the pharaoh, usually never higher than the knee. Here, Nefertari is portrayed on an equal footing with her husband. She is the second of only 2 ancient Egyptian queens to have a temple built specifically for them by the pharaoh. The other queen was Nefertiti, who had a temple built for her by her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten. The walls inside this temple are dedicated to beautiful images of goddess Hathor, particularly the Hathoric columns. The location of Abu Simbel had been sacred to Hathor long before the 2 temples were built. It's thus thought that it was specifically selected by Ramses for this very reason. The temple also has scenes of Ramses and Nefertari making offerings to the gods and paying homage to them. It's often claimed that while the temple was being carved, due to her ill health, Nefertari could only get a glimpse of it from a distance while navigating the Nile. She never got to actually see and enter the temple after its completion, since she had already passed away. In this scene, Nefertari is illustrated giving her blessing to Ramses as he smites his enemies, showing her importance to the pharaoh. The niche at the back of the temple has a statue of Hathor as a divine cow, her other manifestation as a goddess. She seems to be emerging from the cliff. Here, Hathor is depicted as the mistress of the temple that is dedicated to her and to Queen Nefertari. Over time, Abu Simbel was abandoned and was eventually forgotten. The two temples were taken over by the sand that engulfed them and covered them completely. In fact, the site was practically unknown to the outside world until its rediscovery in 1813 by the Swiss researcher Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. It was later explored for the first time in 1817-1818 by the Italian explorer Giovanni Battista Belzoni, who went on to clear the sand, finally revealing these marvels to the world. Abu Simbel is truly a must-see site.